And welcome to Better Together, sharing our lupus. We're here to empower people living with lupus to live their best lives, whatever that might look like. And we have a resource-filled show today, so please join me as I welcome my co-host, Dr. Michaela Baird, aka the Lupus Doc. Hey, Dr. Michaela.
Hello, Chanel. So glad to be here tonight. How are you?
Yes, I know you've been busy at a conference this past week, so thank you for joining us. You were at a special conference. Can you please share with our guests, our viewers, what this is?
Yes, I was at the American College of Rheumatology. So this happens once a year. It's called Convergence, and it brings together rheumatologists nationally, globally, and there's so much new research discussed, so many new treatments discussed. So it was really exciting to be there.
That is so good to hear. Anything new, any new learnings or information that might be interesting to our viewers?
There's lots of things that happen there, but one exciting thing for the lupus community is that the American College of Rheumatology actually published new guidelines that are coming out about how we treat lupus that involves and affects the kidneys. So I'm really excited to see what all those recommendations look like.
Well, hopefully we have some good things. Oh, you also mentioned, I remember we were talking, there was like some AI stuff going on, or?
Yeah, I went to different sessions on machine learning. Doctors are learning more and more how we can incorporate AI into maximizing our time with patients. So there's just so much that's happening in the technology side.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. I'm so excited to hear that people that, that everyone's concerned and really trying to do this work around lupus, because I do remember an era where no one was talking about lupus. And so
Definitely.
We're a hot topic right now.
Yeah. I think that kind of goes into today's topic. We're going to be talking about all flared up. So the title is All Flared Up, Prevention is the Goal. And so speaking of that, how have your flares been, Chanel?
I think having lupus is such a challenge because I know that I've been in and out of different types of flares, and it's been really stressful and really annoying to manage. And as much as we can look great, and I know I be looking nice and stuff, living with lupus has been really a challenge. So I've been in a lot of flares lately, and I wasn't before. So we're gonna figure it out. That's what happens. We're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, and that's what the show is about. I appreciate your honesty because I think it's so important for people to really know that they aren't alone in the experience. And even as a co-host on the show talking about lupus, I'm still learning a lot from you. And I think that, you're still learning how to navigate things.
Thank you. I'm trying, girl. And that's also why today's topic is so important, because we've talked about flares in the past, but today we are talking about prevention. And I think that that's a really important conversation to have.
I think it's so true. I think it's a big distinction. We talk a lot about managing flares and what that means for your care and being able to identify flares. But then there's this whole other space that we're really working towards, which is preventing even having a flare. And I think the big difference is how do we think about even avoiding getting to the flare state. And so I think that as we talk about all the components that come into a flare, we're going to get there today.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about that, just that, okay? And I have some guests that are here that are going to be talking about their reduced disease activity, moving into organ remission, and things of that ways. So our first guest is going to be Jamila Moore, who hails from Toronto, Canada, by way of Jamaica, West Indies. Hey, Jamila.
Hi everyone.
Gotta bring you in. Oh, yes, you've dealt with the full gamut of lupus symptoms, and you are proud to say that your lupus nephritis has no activity.
Yes,
so excited for
you. Fingers crossed that it stays that way. Things have been okay. It'll flare here and there, but minor flares. Things that are manageable.
And we're so glad we're going to get to talk to you all about it. And we know you previously studied aesthetics.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know,
Skin looks so
and I can
fabulous.
tell, right?
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
And you're in school majoring in social work in hopes of helping youth any way you can. Can't wait to
Yes.
talk to you.
Yes,
All right,
that
and
is-
next we have Dr. Sheena Ogando.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much
Hey,
for having me.
she is a born and raised New Mexican as well as Filipino descent, but you're now a full-time rheumatologist focused on providing care to underserved communities.
Yes.
And I cannot hesitate to mention you're a former yoga instructor, yes, fitness folk, and a marathon runner and a candle maker. And you were there at the American College of Rheumatology conference with Dr. Michaela, right?
Yes, exactly. And I was actually at that lecture that Dr. Michaela mentioned. It was a really amazing lecture talking about lupus nephritis and guidelines. And you know me, Mika, I was there with my computer taking my notes.
Yeah,
so it was really good.
we're both excited to bring
That's
all
so
this
great.
knowledge
That's
back
so great.
to
Well,
our
we look-
communities and our patients.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'm so glad. When we look forward, I'm so excited for you to be in conversation with each other and talking about your professional experience with all this. But last but certainly not least, we have Shamika Marty, who is also known as the Pretty Sick Lupus Chick, joining us again.
Hello.
And she is a lupus advocate, cybersecurity project manager.
I'll step in here. So you're also a mentor, a consultant hailing from Dublin, California. We were talking about that. And another person who escaped the cold. So
Yes.
a week ago, you made a big announcement on Instagram. And what was that, Shamika?
My lupus is finally in remission, and I did have a kidney transplant, so I had lupus nephritis, and I no longer have that.
Yay. So we are so excited for you and that your disease is inactive. Congratulations. And I can't wait for us to talk more about your path.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know what just happened. I've been on my computer all day and it's been perfectly fine, but it's going to be a great show. I'm very excited. All right, so great. And oh my gosh, we have to talk to our viewers. Viewers, please join in on this conversation. Comment, ask questions in the chat, talk with us, talk with each other. And we're going to definitely try to get to all your comments. And hello, Ursuline said hello to us in the chat virtually. So,
Hi, Ursuline.
So now would usually come at the end of the show, but we're switching things up this episode as we go to our special segment called Spotlight on Research. So this segment invites guests from research sites across the country to better explain this journey that leads to new treatments, sharing both the facts, the myths, and the realities about the clinical trial process and ways that we can be involved.
So today we're going to be focusing on patient safety. Our guest this evening is Dr. Daniel Wallace. He's a clinical professor of medicine at the David Geffen School of Medicine at UCLA, another Cali person, associate director of the Rheumatology Fellowship Program at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and his practice actually includes caring for 2,000 lupus patients, and this is the largest cohort in the U.S. So welcome, Dr. Wallace.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I also was in Washington, D.C. at the American College of Rheumatology meeting, and I was one of the authors of the nephritis guidelines, which were presented, which do work with prevention and trying to prevent flares for kidney involvement.
Thank you for your hard work. It's exciting to have these guidelines as we treat our patients.
Yes, and thank you for joining us. You're a research celebrity. I don't know if you're aware. And you're super accomplished with so many awards, and you've written medical textbooks, and you're definitely perfect to talk to us about this. So let's get right into it. So say I sign up for a clinical trial. Are we all signing up to get the same drug?
Well, clinical trials are phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, or phase 4. Phase 1 is when you try a new drug and you're just interested in safety. Phase 2 is a dose finding study. Phase 3 is the one that most of us are familiar with, where some get placebo and some get real drug. And phase 4 is when a drug that's already on the market and has been deemed to be safe is tested for a new indication. And as far as there's 2 trial designs with placebo, but there's also withdrawal studies where, especially in pediatrics, everybody gets the real drug, and then after a certain number of months, some people are stopped and get placebo and some continue. So it's a very different landscape of what we get in a clinical trial.
Got it. So everyone's getting different things. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to ask a question. So can you just say, what is a placebo exactly? Is that the...
Okay. A placebo trial is when you take a pill or get a medication that has no active ingredient in it. But in lupus trials, everybody gets standard of care. For example, in most lupus trials, patients are allowed to take ibuprofen or nonsteroidals. Patients are allowed to take antimalarials such as hydroxychloroquine. Patients are allowed to take corticosteroids. Patients may be allowed to take immune suppressive drugs, but the new drug that's being studied is put on top of standard of care. So that's what most of the studies involve.
Go ahead, Chanel. Do you have some more questions?
That's follow-up question, just because I'm like, some of these words are, I know what they are, but I want to make sure everyone does. Standard of care. So you're pretty much saying that the placebos are an option just to see standard of care people getting whatever they've been getting before, continued treatment in comparison.
And we have an add-on, and most standard of care plus trial drugs, the ones that have been approved recently, add maybe 15 to 20% benefit from what we have already, which are effective drugs, but they're not necessarily remittive drugs.
Dr. Wallace, I all the time I'm sharing the option of clinical trials with patients in my office. And the question is always, well, what are the dangers? So how would you kind of talk someone who's interested in a clinical trial through if there are any dangers in being in one?
Patients who are on a clinical trial get better care than they do if they're not. For example, if somebody turns out to be an early diabetic or have hypertension or another condition, we're more likely to find it. So actually, I remember being in a trial where a patient, where all women had to get a mammogram, and we identified early breast cancer in a patient we were screening for a lupus nephritis trial. So actually, the dangers, we really help them. And if you have any problems with the drug, you can withdraw from a trial in a moment's notice. And some of the drugs we're looking at have 8-hour half-lives, so you're only sick for a day.
Yeah, it's so true that there's so much data collected that we can find extra information that's helpful for someone's care. Another piece people ask a lot about is who's going to be following me? Am I going to be seeing my regular doctor? So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, in the United States, people generally see their doctor because there's the Lucin Network, which is 42 academic sites. It has 30,000 lupus patients. There's private practice sites where you get to see your private doctor. The situation that occurs where people don't see their doctor is usually outside the United States, where people live in a developing country in a rural area, where they're sent to the big city to get the trial. And actually, they get great care once they are more rigorously evaluated.
No, I just want to say thank you for sharing that. So just to refresh and make sure I understand it. So you stay with your regular doctor, but you get this extra special care because they're monitoring you specifically for the trial. So they want to see everything that happens. And so that's the way that you also can get access to better quality of care by being a part of the trial.
We take care of the whole patient, yes.
Got it. And you've been doing this work for decades. I have to ask you, what was it that inspired you to go into research? I mean, you could have just been a regular rheumatologist, but what made you go into the study world?
Well, when I did my fellowship in the 1970s, there were really no alternatives. And this was the only way for people who were really sick to be able to try new interventions. So it was very, very exhilarating to be able to help people and be in a lot of grateful patients. I still see them 30, 40 years later.
It's amazing.
That's so good. That's so good to hear. Thank you so much for jumping on and joining us for our segment. It means a lot to hear and understand, because I think a lot of people do not understand the placebo. They think that they're getting a fake drug, as opposed to it being, I guess I've heard it's a sugar pill. It's like a water, like just other things, but they think that they're getting
they're getting. Yeah. Right.
So it's scary sometimes for people that don't know the truth. So you definitely shed light on just the opportunity to be able to get better treatment and to get access to quality care. And for people that don't even have health insurance, being on a clinical trial, you're getting quality care as well.
Right. It's a pleasure to work with you guys and join you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh man, so that's some good knowledge, but we got to get back to the topic at hand. We know what we're working towards for the future through research, but let's get back to the topic at hand, and we're going to welcome our guests to the stage. Put some purple hearts in the chat to all our viewers as we speak to our first guest, Jamila Moore. Woo.
Welcome, Jamila. We are so happy to have you here with us, and like everyone, we want to have you share your lupus story.
Thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to, shed some light on lupus. I've been battling with lupus for 7 years, which is crazy because I was calculating on my fingers how many years I was diagnosed. And I was like, for the longest, I'm like, oh, it's been 5 years, but it has actually been 7 years now.
Wow.
I was diagnosed in 2018. I presented with a few symptoms, but not knowingly. And then one day I went to the hospital, and of course I wasn't feeling well. And then a few months later, my family doctor called me and kind of gave me that diagnosis and kind of explained what it was and essentially what my life would look like and the kind of physicians I'll be working with and certain lifestyle changes I would need to make. So I kind of got that full rundown. Since then, I have battled with a few different kinds of lupus. I've had bullous lupus, I've had lupus nephritis, and discoid lupus as well. So many different symptoms, many different things. And of course, as we said, it affects everyone differently. My symptoms present a little differently. Inflammation, I did experience some hair loss. Obviously, as I mentioned, the skin issues. And then further in my lupus journey, I want to say about 2 years ago is when I presented with kidney issues. And that's when I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. And I think I was like stage 4 and 5. And I had it in both kidneys at the time. So I did have a course of treatment that I followed with my nephrologist. And since then, things have gotten better. And it's been in remission, thankfully, for I want to say like 8 months. 8 months. It's been a while. So I'm really happy about that. There are a few things that I did do on the holistic side as well that helped me personally, and things I continue to do till this day that has helped my journey like be manageable.
Thank you so much for sharing. You mentioned a really important moment 8 months ago where you found out that your kidneys were better and they no longer had disease activity.
Yes.
Can you bring us through what that felt like?
Honestly, yeah. Like, I think when I was diagnosed with lupus, like one of my biggest fears was developing lupus nephritis, like to be honest, because everything I've heard about it was like, oh, your kidneys are going to fail and you're going to be sick and you may die and all of these really negative things where it's like, oh, like I want to avoid that as much as possible. But I feel like for some people, it's just inevitable. Even if you have the healthiest diet and you do the best things, like sometimes it still just doesn't happen the way you want it to. But when my nephrologist, when she told me that my lupus seems to be in remission, I was kind of shocked. Like I did feel better, but I didn't know for sure. It's like, you know, I have energy. I'm not experiencing pain. I feel good. Like everything seems to be okay. When she told me, I smiled. I was like, wow, like this is amazing news. Like I feel like I can, you know, get back to not worrying about certain things and just live life. So I would just say happiness, honestly. Like I was extremely happy and just kind of like, oh, whew, like, you know, one less thing to like stress or worry about or be anxious about.
Oh no, that there's so much joy in that. I definitely, I'm overjoyed for you. How about that? Like
Right?
I'm happy for you, and I can see that it definitely is a weight off of your shoulders, just knowing something
100%.
is getting better. And so you mentioned having some holistic things, or just in general, what were the changes that you made that you found helped for you to reduce some of your flares?
Yeah. Well, a few years ago, when I was like kind of earlier in my lupus diagnosis, like it's like, you know, holistic is the way. Like I need to figure out what works. I did go vegan for a while. That did not work for me personally, because I love curry goat. I love chicken. So it was
I'm
about
also
me finding,
Chinese, so.
right? It was about me finding a balance. And I realized just everything like in moderation is better than like over consuming certain things. So I know certain things don't work for me. Like I know when I overconsume like sweets or carbs, like I get really flared up in the joints and my skin reacts really badly. So I have to monitor or watch what my intake is like. And then obviously like alcohol consumption as well, monitoring how much I consume. In terms of like holistic wellness, you know, in Jamaica, I was born in Jamaica and I was raised there. So we have a lot of like holistic, natural ways of living, like, you know, all the herbal teas, the bush teas, all of that stuff, like often detoxing, like doing blood cleanses through like herbal teas and stuff like that, you know, drinking my tea for like fluid retention. It's just finding things that work, teas that are packed with iron, tonics, like, and supplements, like taking my vitamin D, you know, making sure that I take my selenium and like certain other supplements that I know for sure will help my lupus, you know, and even just finding out the things I'm deficient in. Like when I go for a checkup, like I'll ask my doctor, like, can you check and see what I'm deficient in so I can make sure I'm taking enough of that. Like all of those things kind of play a role in like my overall wellness.
Thank you for sharing all that. You know, I think that there's so many pieces that come into play in your journey, and what a lot of people share about are social support systems.
Yeah.
Could you share a little with us about who helps you navigate your lupus?
Honestly, my sister, I think she's probably on right now, probably smiling like this. But my sister, we've been through everything together, life, like we've done this life thing together, and she's like my biggest, like number one supporter. I don't know where I would be without her, honestly. I do have a great support system with friends and stuff as well. Like they're very helpful and they're always there for me if I need support, reaching out, you know what I mean? But really, I would say it's my sister that's really been my rock, like through some of my toughest times, like being in the hospital. She's been one of the like only people who consistently been there. So I just want to give a big shout out to her and God, of course, because my faith has also really helped me like just stay on, you know.
Beautiful. You know, and as we talk about flares specifically in this segment, tell us a little bit about something that you might incorporate that helps you prevent flares.
Honestly, for me, like what's worked is like I really suffer from anxiety and like stress. Like I take it on really heavily. And I would say asking for help, like that was the biggest thing I struggled with for a really long time. And I thought like I have to do everything because, you know, growing up, I felt like that's the life I had. I had to hold my own and just do everything myself. But extending myself and asking for help has really helped with managing my flares. You know, even when it comes to school, asking for accommodations, getting academic accommodations so I can have more time to like focus and not stress. Like all of these things have played a role in reducing like my flares. So I would say like that's the biggest thing for me, like asking for help.
Well, thank you so much. We have you just said so many different things that I know, even for me, are speaking to me. I'm a little further on life's journey than you are. I recognize I'm a little older than you, and there's challenges. But I was diagnosed around the same time, age-wise, as you were, and so you're a little younger. You're in a young adult age and phase. And what advice do you have for somebody younger in life, around that age that you were first diagnosed? What do you have for them on how to and on figuring life out with a chronic illness?
Oh wow. I would say like looking back, like if I could talk to my like younger self, I would just say like don't worry. Like honestly, everyone's path is different, everyone's walk is different, and give yourself some grace. I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, especially like having lupus or whatever ailment you're dealing with. Give yourself some grace and take it one day at a time, because every day is going to look different. And just like, I feel like we have all these expectations of what life should look like. Maybe like, lessen them just a little bit, because things don't always work out the way you want it to, but it doesn't always mean it's going to be bad.
No,
That's
definitely
great advice. Thank you so much, Jamila, for being so open and sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you so much. We're going to bring you back on a little bit later, but right now we're going to talk to Dr. Ogando to speak a little bit more about this idea of flare prevention, as well as just flare reduction, getting rid of that. So welcome, Dr. Ogando.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. You've been making major moves for lupus. And when I say move, I'm talking about running. Okay. I mean, you were a fellow Team Life Without Lupus runner in the New York City Marathon. I did the half, you did the full. How was that experience?
Oh my gosh, it was such a challenge. I'm so glad I did it, though. I fundraised for the Lupus Research Alliance in my journey, and it was so much fun. I'm so glad I did it. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever done. And I think it's been the only marathon that I've done. Here's actually a picture of me and my sister. She was like a huge part of my run, and she actually ran the race with me, and she finished before me and waited for me. So that was pretty amazing. That's us holding our flags. We're of Dominican and Filipino descent. And I was just so excited to see my name on this little board. It was so cool to find it. So yeah, we had so much fun.
No, thank you. Okay, well, I'm so glad, and thank you for that. That's so encouraging to know that you loved us this much. You love the Lupies this much that you ran for us. But
yeah.
Well, now I'm gonna ask you, based on the topic, can you please explain what's the importance of flare prevention versus flare management in your own words?
Yeah, so flare prevention is preventing the fire from happening. Flare management is about putting out the fire. So definitely keeping the fire out is very important. Things that are really important for keeping the fire out is making sure you take your meds. When you stop your meds, then that fire starts to burn. And so it's important to take your meds, be consistent. Even if you're feeling well, take your meds, okay? If you're thinking about stopping your meds, definitely talk to your doctor. There have been patients that I've seen who have been in remission who are interested in stopping their meds, and I closely follow them. And I see, make sure that all of the markers are low, everything looks great. And so maybe we could consider weaning off the meds, but I think definitely talking to your doctor before you do it is really, really important.
Dr. Sheena, I'm so glad you mentioned remission. I think we hear that word used in different ways. I know for my practice, we really try and target this idea of organ remission. So what do you think is most helpful to get there?
In terms of organ remission, in terms of non-medical reasons, non-medical ways?
Yeah, like lifestyle, I know you bring a lot out, of your personal lifestyle into your practice. So, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely reducing your stress levels is really important. Setting realistic goals for yourself, taking breaks when you need to. Ways to reduce stress levels depends on each person. So for me, the way I reduce stress levels is, exercising, running, dancing is a big one for me. And also, yoga, meditation can be helpful. For some, prayer might be helpful at reducing stress levels. Looking at your life and seeing what kind of people are around you. So whether if there's any toxic friends or relationships, and that might be someone that you might need to step away from to reduce your stress levels, especially if you find that you're getting a lot of flares because of certain situations that are going on in your life.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, this idea of like boundaries and setting expectations. So I really hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it feels like flares happen so randomly, even though, you know, like you said, sometimes we're calling me out really quickly. Let's remember to take my medication consistently. I don't always do that. So I understand, but how can what are the common things that you see are symptoms outside of stress? Because I know we speak a lot about stress and setting boundaries, but what are some other things that can cause flares?
Yeah, so smoking can definitely cause flares. Looking for better healthy habits instead of smoking would help reduce your flares. Also, sunlight. Sunlight's a big one that can cause flares, and also sunlight can interact with your meds. So I know like a nice day on the beach might reduce your stress levels, but it might also cause your flares. So staying away from the sun is best.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a summer baby, so you just broke my whole heart. But you're definitely right. And I know better. Sometimes we do know better and we don't do better. But definitely, I know like wearing SPF and wearing hats and protective sun thing is something that I try to do for myself. But thank you for the reminder that, you know, definitely smoking. And I'm sorry, can I ask this other question? Marijuana, is that the same thing as smoking a cigarette? Because I think there's a lot of people that believe that marijuana reduction. Just curious if you have any, or a doctor.
I mean, I was a doctor in California, but I never endorsed marijuana as a treatment for lupus. So I don't necessarily want to make any comments in regards to that. But yes, I just say stay away from any kind of inhalants. You know, it does damage the lungs too. So.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to throw a curveball your way.
Yeah, we're talking about tobacco smoking. But, you know, I think when we think through all of these other lifestyle pieces, we really need a plan. And I don't know if there's a way you do this or you found a way that your patients like, you know, when you talk about all these different pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it really just is a office visit to office visit conversation. It depends on what's going on in their lives. Oftentimes, if a patient comes to me and they have lupus and they have a new rash, it's, you know, I worked in sunny San Diego and I had to ask, are you in the sunlight a lot? You know, are you taking your meds? So just sort of teasing it out with the patient is helpful. You can always just give blanket recommendations, but really telling them when it happens is also helpful so that you know for next time. But also some people have asked me about food, and so if certain foods can help reduce lupus flares. Definitely avoiding, so I've seen some research that show avoiding garlic, alfalfa sprouts, and even some supplementation such as echinacea can be a trigger. So avoiding those kinds of foods and supplements. Even certain antibiotics. So if you're starting any new medications, such as like antibiotics or other medications, definitely run it by a rheumatologist.
Thank you. I definitely try to tell I'm like Jamila, my family's from the Caribbean, and so my dad loves to throw some kind of bush tea, some kind of island thing that he got, feral compound, all of these different things that we took when we were younger. And I think that that's a really important factor, is just really letting our doctors know what are we taking, what are we adding to the things that they already know for us to be taking. And I think that that's the other side of it, the food conversation. I feel like there are anti-inflammatory diets and things like that get promoted. I'm just curious if you see a rise in those and in patients asking questions about diets, and what do you think they should do if that is a concern?
Yeah, so I definitely have a lot of patients asking about diet. I don't recommend again for any fad diets, any diets that you just do for a short period of time. A lot of my patients do say that sugar tends to trigger their lupus. Gluten seems to be a favorite of patients to avoid. So yeah, I think I would say just try different ones and you can see what works for you. Each person is an individual, and definitely run it by your doctor and see what they have to say as well.
And I think you make a good point there that like we're talking about sustainable changes, and so fad diets really, could give like short-term changes, but we really want to make sure we make sustainable diet changes.
Yeah,
No, definitely.
exactly.
And on YouTube, Cancerous Butterfly said gluten-free items, and that was definitely there. I don't know if curry goat was a part of the diet, the ideal diet for lupus, but definitely think just being mindful of, I guess, what we put in our bodies is super important. So thank you so much for really sharing this. And navigating wellness is just a challenge on a daily basis, and it's also the most frustrating part of having lupus. So thank you for offering some advice. We're going to come back to both you and Jamila in a little bit later to share some final thoughts. But thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So right now, let's welcome back to our virtual stage someone who's been a guest on our show before and is continuing to do all the work for lupus patients everywhere, Shamika Marti.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you, gals.
Hi. Hello, Miss Pretty Sick Lupus Chick. Okay, yep. Hey. Don't worry, I told her I was gonna change my name to the Lupus Baddie. That's what it's about to be like.
That's what we're gonna represent. We're gonna represent like that.
Well, you have been a very busy lupus chick since we've last seen you. And congrats on being the 2023 Sequoia Project Patient Volunteer of the Year. Congrats on that. And you've been doing some really amazing things, as always, in support of that. And you've been so active in your community as a speaker, as a consultant, celebrating, different things and different bills that have come out. You've been in DC. And as active as I know you are, somehow you were able to find time to get your lupus under control.
Well, I mean, I'm a soldier. I thought I told you.
Period.
So, just saying, there's that. No, I mean, my story is different than most because my mother had lupus. So I've been dealing with lupus. Lupus has been a part of my life since I was about 10 years old. So my entire life. And so I know what not to do because she's not here with us anymore. I love that drives me. Before I had lupus, that's what I advocated for, was in the honor of my mother. And everything that I saw, I started to experience. So for me, it was like, okay, I remember when this happened. I know what to do. I know exactly what to do. And there's no reason why I need to hoard that information. I want to share it with the world because I don't want anybody else to suffer the way that she did. And that's what drives me. It's not even just for me. I want to prevent things that rheumatology really runs in my family. I have a great aunt with MS. My grandmother had severe rheumatoid arthritis, and everyone seems to have something. And I do have a daughter, so I worry and I want to live to see a cure.
Well, thank you. And you got congratulations in the chat as well. And but before we do this, I know you did this before, but can you please share your lupus story for those of us that don't know? I mean, you gave us the history in your family, but for you, what led to that diagnosis?
Well, because I knew what to look out for, it started out with, I didn't want to manifest it. Of course I didn't. So for me, I just kept asking every year, can you please test me? Now, just a disclaimer, there is no one test for lupus, but I knew that a positive ANA would basically be the road to discovery in lupus. So every year I would just ask my doctor. As soon as he did blood work, I was adamant about it. Nothing popped up. When I look back, of course, when everybody says it takes 5 to 7 years to get a diagnosis, if you look back at what happened, it was just so many different things at different times that if you put it together, it was like she had lupus then, but it just didn't show up. So I started to have major issues all at once when my body was starting to freak out. I couldn't taste anything. And I'm like, why can't I taste anything? Like, I'm eating food and I can't taste anything. Then all of a sudden I started having back problems. And then my lymph nodes were swollen. And I kept asking my doctor, like, please, I think it's happening now. And they're like, no, we just tested you last year. You're fine. And so they said, no, you have allergies. And I'm like, at 30, I'm having allergies now? Okay. And they gave me allergy medication. Went away for like a couple of days. Then all of a sudden my hands were like this. And all I could think about was my grandmother. And I'm like, okay, there's something really weird going on. And I just kept saying something, and then my back hurt. So I did an x-ray. I went to the orthopedic specialist, and he's like, well, why are you here? And I explained to him, because he's like, I'm looking at your x-ray. Your x-ray's fine. And he went through and he's like, you sound just like my sister who had lupus. And I was like, that's so funny you said that. That runs in my family. And as soon as I'm walking out, like it was divine intervention, I get a phone call from my primary care doctor that said, oh, well, we ran the test like you told us to, and you do have lupus. You need to see a rheumatologist. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, knew exactly what was happening. And I called my husband and I was like, okay, all right, I had my little cry session. It's on and popping. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what happened. But of course, it was a series of, I had a rash and I just broke out in hives everywhere and all these other things. But I know I was in a high stressful work environment that really triggered everything. And it was just making me freak out. That leads us to flaring up.
You know, Shamika, we know you've been able to really implement this idea of like preventing flares. And, you know, I know that your story ends with you getting to a really good space. So kind of walk us through how it feels to be in that preventive space and that really good space.
It feels wonderful because knowing it's different for me because my mom is not here. And she suffered for 23 years and it just, I'm like, I did it. That's all. I knew I could do it. And so for me, it's like way more than like, yay. It's like, I wish you were here to see this because it can be done.
Thank you. And prayers and everything to you. I know that that's a hard thing to have to say, like, I wish she could see me now, but I know she's very proud and very happy for you as you move forward in life. Now you've had lupus for 14 years, but
yeah,
the last 6 months your lupus has been inactive. And I'm curious, what changes, were there any changes that happened in your life before and during this time that you really contributed to where you are now?
Yes. Getting a hold of stress is a very, very key thing. I know that because I had a stroke and that was at work. And I was like, okay, I need to open up my mouth and say something. I need reasonable accommodations. And so I work from home. And from that point on, I moved. Also, I was the cold. I love New Jersey. I'm going back, even though I'm good, but I'm going back now. My husband has suggested, let's move. This cold is killing you. And just recognizing there's environmental factors, there's regular work stress factors, and it could be family matters. And so that plus when I talk to patients, because I'm a huge patient advocate, I'm a big proponent of being proactive versus reactive. So a lot of people don't think about keeping a diary. So every day, write down, what did you do? What did you eat? What did you drink? Who did you socialize with? Because you can start a process of elimination. Okay, and then at the end of the day, I felt crappy. I felt this. I took this medication, and also incorporating into, I started taking this medication. I started taking this supplement. Because of course, the first thing that I thought of when I was diagnosed with lupus is, oh my God, I have to go vegan. I have to juice, and I have to do this, and I have to go get a baby goat and sacrifice it. And, and it was just like, I got to calm down because that's not working for me. And so find out what works for me. Because the first thing my dad says as old school, get rid of sugar and gluten. And I'm like, I tried gluten, and gluten pasta sucks. Okay, and I like meat like nobody's business, and the only thing that keeps me like going all the time, because everybody asks me how much energy I have, so much energy because I drink coffee. I'm sorry, I only have one cup, only one. But you find out what works for you, and just like Jamila said, everything in moderation. I think that eliminating things is very tough for people, and if you could do it, God bless you. I know I can't. So I do a little bit, because one thing is, one doctor will say, don't do this. This is bad. Then the next thing you read, this one is bad. And you're just like, okay, well, guess what? Just don't breathe. And what are we supposed to do? So everything in moderation, and monitor yourself. And if you can't write it down, there are apps. Everybody's on their phones. I heavily suggest writing things down, because how are you going to determine what a problem is? We do it scientifically. We do it with our bodies. Help the doctor help you. Mm-hmm. And if you feel as though, you know what, a lot of people don't know that you can ask for reasonable accommodations. Lupus is listed as a disability, and utilize that. You don't have to say, oh, I have to be on Social Security and I can't work. There are ways, and certain jobs, skills that you have, you must. But if you don't, a closed mouth, I'll just say this, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. That's all.
That's what my mom always said. And I mean, I think it's so important that part of there was so much of self-advocacy that happened in your statement just now. You know, so much of it is asking, seeing what you can get, seeing what you need, paying attention. That part about people, like some people will really be this, you know, this stress you out, you know, depending on who it is and the energy that's around you, and paying attention to how your body feels is so important. So now somebody out there is watching this feeling hopeful. I am one of them. But what would you like to say to them? Anybody that is dealing with flares that wants to be in a space where their disease is inactive or in remission?
Just take a second to self-reflect. I can't tell you, a doctor can't tell you, you're the one that lives in your body. You are you are the business. You are the CEO of this business. Only you can determine what things, when you just sit there and really reflect, what is actually bothering you. I think a source of a lot of diseases is stress, and just trying to do something that makes you happy. Advocacy makes me happy. And even though people are like, you're crazy busy, I couldn't be happier, because I'm actually helping people. And I do get massages. I take care of myself. I'll go ahead and spoil myself, go get a massage. My husband's like, where are you going? I'm like, you know, I'm going to go get, you know, I have a relationship with my masseuse right now. I need that going on. Okay, I need to keep it going. But just to sit there and reflect what makes you happy. And if you can focus on that, I mean, I think that it will just radiate and your body will be better. The first thing that people think is everything is mental. Well, actually, first of all, you always say, I have that gut feeling. You never say, I have that thing in my mind. I have that gut feeling. Well, in your gut is your feelings. And so you need to take care of that.
That was a bar. I love that. I love that.
I was like, yes, I got it.
there's your no one says I feel that feeling, the idea of paying attention to your intuition, your gut, yes. What's telling you, what are you feeling as you go through life, and being able to react and respond to that. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, and hearing all you've been through to where you are now is absolutely inspiring. And I'm excited. We're going to bring everybody back together to share final thoughts and responses. So welcoming back to the stage, Dr. Oganda, and let's welcome back to the stage, Amelia Moore. You know, man, this is such a great conversation that we've had.
So good to see everyone back on the stage. And I just know that almost everyone mentioned stress relief. And I think two people mentioned actually the people that can create that stress. So Dr. Ogando, I know you're a part-time yoga instructor. Tell me about yoga and how does that impact stress?
Yeah, I think yoga just helps you slow down your mind, you know, the deep breaths, the focus on your breath. It just sort of puts everything outside of your mind. And then you just get to know what's really important and helps you stay centered. Not only does it do that for the mind, it also is great for the body, the stretching. It's low impact on the joints. So definitely great all around. Yeah. And I just love Shamika's comments about keeping a diary and seeing who's in your life, seeing what you've eaten, all those things that might have contributed to your flare, and knowing your own patterns. I'm not in your body. I'm not the one who lives your life. So it's very hard for me as a physician to sometimes tease out each person's individual flare. And so having that diary really does help.
No, definitely. Thank you. And I'm curious for everybody. Okay, Shamika, you mentioned massage. I'm curious, Jamila, what is a thing that you do that relieves stress for you? What is something else that might help you, that helps you manage that?
Hmm.
Dr. Ogando does candle making, so I know that there's everybody has their hobbies, but
Yes.
Honestly, there's like so many things I love to do that like really stress. As I said, I do love music. I love to sing and write music as well. I love to get my nails done. Like things like that really helps a lot. Putting myself together like really makes me feel good. Like, getting my hair done, doing my makeup, doing my lashes, like things like that is for me like self-care, and it helps me like remember that, I'm not my lupus. Like I have lupus, but I'm also still a baddie, like I can be both, like they can coexist. So it's like finding things that work. And I love to eat, going out to eat, going to the movies, hanging out with my friends, going on nature walks. Like there's so many things that help. And obviously that's dependent on my mood. Sometimes it's just staying inside and watching TV. Like sometimes even just that, like just taking time to myself to just be still.
oh, that's something I just learned the beauty of, that staying still part.
Listen,
I have
feel
always
like you're like I'm not doing enough, and it's like sometimes you don't need to do too much. Like sometimes you just need to not do anything actually and relax.
yeah, no, I felt that. Shamika, I see you shaking your head.
You follow me on Instagram, you know I can't sit still. It's really hard for me to, but about the massage, the one that I get specifically, because if they do a Swedish massage, that like basically you're impairing me. When they go deep in and like the little old lady like does flips and goes like this, can't do that. I like the raindrop technique, which incorporates aromatherapy and focuses on your spine. And it's also kind of like a lymphatic drainage massage. But I always tell people, even when I'm in a wheelchair and they look at me and they're like, oh, you're fine. I said, I like taking care of myself. I don't want to look the part. I want people to know that even though I'm chronic, I'm iconic and I can look like this. So there you go. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm a type that's like that actually.
I was about to say, do you have a t-shirt line? I feel like that.
Yes, plug. You see my ad. Go right ahead, right there.
I might be chronic, but I'm iconic.
Yes. It was like
period. No, and I guess if there's any final words anybody would like to say, just to give advice and give hope, because I think that's the goal of this episode, and we recognize that everybody might not go into remission. People might have varied levels throughout their life, but what would you like to leave people? I know Jamila, you said something in general, and Shamika, you said something in general, but is there any other thing that you can think of that might be a great message? And I'm going to ask Dr. Ogando, and you know what, Dr. Michaela, can you say something too? Because we're not guests, but I think it's helpful for everybody to contribute to that statement. Let me see who would like to start. I'm going to pass it to Dr. Ogando. Actually, I'm going to have you start off.
Yeah, so I think what's great about the patient stories that have been shared are that they all went through a really difficult time at first, but they've come through to the other side, and now they're at a place of stability and calm. So I think with some people who are probably in the thick of it, there's hope on the other side, and I think these wonderful women have given examples of that. So thank you guys for sharing your stories.
Thank you. Jamila?
Yeah, I'll kind of like chime on to what was said, I guess, about like being in a storm, but there's always like calm after the storm as well. So it's like, just remember it's a chapter, it's not your whole story. And even if there's a few chapters in the book that are not great, like there's always like, I always love the saying there's beauty in the struggle, because we go through so many things, especially like having lupus and like experiencing so many different things, where it's like all of it is just kind of building you into this elite version of yourself. Like it's all character development in a way. And it's like, there's, not great moments, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's like you made it through. And like, that's all, like, I like to tell myself, like, although things were hard, like I'm here still. So, just hold on to that.
Thank you. Shamika.
Never really feel sorry for yourself. Like I said in the beginning, when I was diagnosed, I had a kind of, why me? And then all of a sudden it was, okay, try me, challenge accepted. And you have to have that kind of motivation to drive yourself, to get yourself out of that hole when things just go, okay, well, now I took a couple steps and now I just got 10 steps backwards because this just happened to me. And it's not a bad day. Okay. It's sometimes you will look, nothing can always be rainbows and sunshine. It's always going to be okay. And you never think that you're going to get through it. But then once you get through it, you're like, oh, okay, well, I don't know why I was like that, but things will get better. Have hope and never give up on yourself.
Thank you. Dr. Michaela, what's your thoughts? I feel like we don't get to chime in. I think this is a really good show to chime in on hope.
Well, I think it's building on what's been said about building your calm and your space. And I think a big part of that is who's in that space and who's your social support in that space. And coming from the national conference and meeting so many people who are advocates and want to be support systems, I think sometimes we forget there's a huge community. I mean, I was floored. I'm meeting new people every day who really want to help build out that community in that space. And trying to figure out where you connect. It could be yoga with Dr. Sheena, apparently getting a massage, getting your nails done with someone, but building out that calm space.
Thank you. Yes. And I guess I can, and the last thing to say for me, my contribution to this is just making sure that we are listening. I love that idea of listening to ourselves and trying to prevent as opposed to that. I think that is such a big thing. We're not trying to work ourselves to the point where we know we're going to be sick. When we feel it, we stop. So we feel it. We don't get to that point. Like you said, Dr. Ogando, don't put out the fire. Let's prevent the fire. So, Mercy, this was such a great show. I appreciate it.
I just want to say thank you to everyone, before we get into Chanel's poetry. Thank you, Dr. Sheena Ogando. Thank you, Jamila Moore. Thank you, Shamika Marti. Your time, your stories. We know you're all busy and taking this time out to really share and give to the community and really give hope as people are actively really in those flares and battling lupus. It means so much.
Yes, I know you gave me hope, everyone in here. Thank you. And while all of us may not be fully rid of our lupus, it's beautiful to know that there's a possibility of just reducing the activity and also the importance of taking control of what we can to better our health. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you. And another thank you to our guests. And we really appreciate you all of our viewers. Thank you for watching. And Dr. Michaela, I'm going to pass it to you.
So thank you to Biogen for allowing us to be here tonight. If anyone is interested in getting more information about lupus or information about participating in clinical trials, you can use your camera on your phone, scan the QR code, go to biogentriallink.com. That is BIOGEN triallink.com. And you can see the QR slide here.
And if you're interested in a specific lupus clinical trial, you can take a second to scan any one of these QR codes that you see on screen to learn more.
If you didn't get a chance to scan the codes, we'll share them again at the end of the show. And you can check out the chat for a direct link. We're really looking forward to this whole community joining us again. Not next Tuesday, but the next Tuesday after that. So 2 weeks from now, Tuesday, December 3rd, for a new episode of Better Together, sharing our lupus stories. Our topic is the need for research in lupus, and we'll really be talking about the unique challenges and opportunities in finding treatments for lupus.
Yes, please join our community. If you love us and you miss us and you can't wait till 2 weeks from now, join our community and follow us on Instagram at For Better Together Lupus. That's on IG. And you can also find us on Facebook at Better Together Lupus.
And now to close our show, let's hear some spoken word from Chanel.
I want to turn up, hang out all night, do all the things that I like, live a regular life. But I can't, can I? Well, what is regular? What is my story if not magnificent, if not beautifully complex? I reject the idea that my life has to be ordinary to be extraordinary. I have peace within me. I have calm within me. I am joy. I am life. I'm vivacious, and I am me. Lupus or nah, this is me being extraordinary. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you all in 2 weeks. Have a good night.